What's up, traders? Let's do a pre-close analysis for the day 23rd of October, Wednesday. Going into the week, we have been bearish. I was predicting price to come down to that sell side liquidity on euro dollar and take out that liquidity, which also happens to be resting above the weekly time frame fair value gap and also this daily time frame fair value gap. Right above that weekly time frame fair value gap, we have the 50% off the weekly time frame fair value gap in this green line right there. And I was predicting price to go down to that low and find some support around the fair value gaps 50%. On the weekly time frame, fair value gaps 50%. Going into London session, we opened like this after yesterday's displacement. After rejecting this bearish fair value gap, we displaced down, leaving more fair value gaps along the way, right there, and then we had a pullback just before London open. And to me, after seeing that, I was hoping price would come into this 240 fair value gap, bearish fair value gap, and find resistance during London session and then continue lower. But we don't even get a chance to come up to that level. We just come into this previous order block, close above that 50%, and then tank during London open. This happens at the 7 a.m. candle, so 2 a.m. US time, with no pullback, no entry, potential entry, and just continue, well, drop with this bearish engulfing candle and continue lower. We get a small pullback that doesn't get a 618 pullback, right? It's not in the 618 entry, and then we continue lower into the low, and then we come into that daily time frame fair value gaps 50%, close below it on the 1 hour time frame. After price came into that, below the sell side liquidity, into this weekly time frame fair value gaps 50%, and held these two candles, I went long right here at this candle, but exited straight away because it was still only Wednesday and price is in a bearish order flow, and ideally if I do expect price to find some support, it's going to have to be at the 50% off that daily time frame fair value gap, and it does that. It comes down, it forms a low, essentially a double bottom, taking liquidity off the low of New York session, and then it continues higher. Ideally, I wanted to see some kind of a channel pattern forming at that low before looking for going long. However, on the 15-minute, I didn't get that. On the 1 hour as well, there was a channel. We had RSI diverging. However, it's not really a clear one for me. Ideally, I would have liked to see this one be a channel, then that would have been an good entry for me. But yeah, at the moment, we found support at that 50% of that daily time frame fair value gap, pulled back, pushed up, held this order block on the 1 hour time frame, which I thought was the resistance for the day, and I thought price was going to continue lower, but it looks like we pulled back and is pushing back up at the moment. We've got loads of news tomorrow, all the manufacturing PMI's news until later on in the afternoon, and we could potentially see price come up here in the morning, because we've got PMI's in the morning and then drop further low in the evening, and then find support around here during our previous day's lows and give us that TGIF trade. But because I was bearish going into the day, right, and didn't really get an entry around here, price came into this order block, which I was expecting price to find some support at this daily time frame fair value gap. Find support, comes into that 60-minute fair value gap, 60-minute order block, holds with this range, or not holds with this range, it essentially accumulates right there. On the 5 minutes clearer, I wanted to enter the trade after price broke below this and inverted that bullish fair value gap. However, like I said, I don't know how to trade this well enough, so this is something I left. And when I saw this candle, bullish engulfing candle, come into the 50% off that order block, that was a candle that suggested price could potentially find the highs of the close session there, and I did predict that price might come down to these lows, but it doesn't look like it's going to. However, it's still a potentially an entry in the future, especially in a bearish order flow, when it pulls back into a fair order block at around, London close, taking out previous session's high in a way that I predict, I would think price is going to continue lower. Even better is we'd start to displace, put in this bearish fair value gap, and then we hold that fair value gap right there, and that could have been another entry, a potential entry. But yeah, right now I'm just going to wait and see how market plays out tomorrow morning. Ideally, I want to see price come back down to this low and find support tomorrow or Friday, which will allow me to take that TGIF trade, especially because we've had a bearish week and we've had bearish closes every single day. It looks like we're closing bearish again today. So honestly, I could see price coming down and taking out that low tomorrow. Pound dollar is an interesting one because going into the day, I wasn't sure what price is going to do, because I thought, okay, we took out, the low of this breakout and held with this doji yesterday. So after seeing that, maybe I thought we were going to continue higher up, but we pushed lower. We cleared the remaining of this bullish fair value gap on the 60-minute on the weekly time frame. We've got this second fair value gap that price has come and tapped into, and we have the 50% off that fair value gap and 50% off the daily time frame fair value gap right there, that we could potentially see price coming down to tomorrow during London or New York session and find support and continue higher. Similar to euro dollar, I wasn't really sure how price was going to continue down this morning, because especially we closed inverted this bearish fair value gap this morning before London session, and then during London session, honestly, I was watching this breaker block right there, because that's what I was waiting for price to come into yesterday to look for a short. However, we also had this bearish fair value gap, which is something, another point of interest right above these swing highs. Price is essentially taking liquidity off these swing highs, and then we come up into that fair value gap with this strong bullish candle. And similar to euro dollar, there's just no entry. There's no entry pattern there, and then we tank similar to euro dollar with two of these strong bearish candles leaving out a fair value gap and a breaker. And this is essentially a unicorn setup, right? This is something that I would have traded if it was a Tuesday, because this Wednesday I didn't take it, and because going into the day I was predicting that price had found this low, especially after taking out the swing low right here yesterday. And going into the day I was under the impression that we'd found the low, but seeing this market structure shift with displacement and a breaker, I was also watching that and thinking, okay, maybe we could pull back into this breaker and take a short down, at least even just 1-to-1 here would be good. And then we do that, exactly that, and that closes well. I wanted this to be a bearish engulfing candle, which it is not, but it is a doji pin bar candle, and normally when you see a candle like that and it fails to continue higher, it will continue lower, which is exactly what it does in the next candle. But that's not predicting, that's not a prediction, that's more of a hindsight trading. And then we continue lower after that, get this order block right at 8 a.m. This comes at 4 a.m. so essentially it's still during London session, taps into that New York open. Honestly, that was a good trade, but I'm not trading it on a Wednesday, which is fine by me. And then we get that order block, price comes and taps into the top of that order block and continues lower. Again, we had this order block, price came above that order block's high into that fair value gap, right, and then displaced lower, but into that drawn liquidity if it's something that wanted to trade. Right there above this high, we had the accumulation, and then we had the manipulation, and then we had the distribution, and then we had the pullback, and then price continued lower. And by this point, euro dollar was already making, going up rather than coming down. And at the moment we are right here, and I'm not really looking to trade until we come until tomorrow we take out today's low. But yeah, it's just a good entry technique to identify in the future on Wednesday if I'm going to continue trading in a bearish direction. If we want to see market structure shift, this is a good unicorn entry. And let's see what price does tomorrow during the news.